Bookshop. I'm so excited to see all of you. Our motto here is generally to read books and build community, so you guys attending events like this helps us do that, so we're very grateful. And we're very excited to have Robin, Avni, and Debra Prinzing. So, yay, we'll turn it over to them.
Thank you. Thank you so much. What a great turnout. I'm go Gig Harbor, man. This is amazing.
Well, and the funny part is that half the people know you and half of them know me, and that's what's amazing about it. So,
well, you're the resident. You're the Gig Harbor resident. So that's awesome.
That's true. That's true. We're going to do a little reading from our introduction and talk a little bit about the book, and then we'll take some questions. But before we kick off, are there any flower farmers in the audience this evening? Oh, okay, great.
Yay, thanks for being here.
Great. And do we have, I am assuming, flower lovers? All right, okay, of course.
I'll just start by reading a little bit from our introduction, and then we are going to go back and forth. We have a few thoughts, and we'd love to hear your comments too. We usually meet the flowers first. Then we consider the farmer whose hands grew those blooms. What we know begins with the crops they grow, the uncommon, wistfully romantic botanicals that most of us first encounter at the farmer's market or possibly at a roadside farm stand or U-pick field. During the past several decades, we've witnessed the rising celebrity of the farmer and floral influencer.
Now, when I have to stop you, because when we were doing this, Debra first wrote, we actually wrote the intro together, but she's mainly did most of the writing in the book. But I said, she had said rock star flower farmers, and I said, nobody says rock star anymore. People are not rock stars. They are.
I'm dating myself.
She was dating herself. I said, they're influencers.
Okay.
Go ahead.
All
I'm
right.
sorry.
I love it.
I just
Okay,
had
that's okay.
That footnote.
So the floral influencer phenomenon began with farm-to-table dining, which is sort of how I got hooked. The slow food movement, organic gardening, and other culinary trends. And it soon inspired a fascination with flower farming. We've seen this over the last decade. When we know the farmer and learn about their journey to the land, the farming lifestyle is even more alluring.
Which is what we talk about in this book. There's 29 flower farmers from across the country and 2 from Canada, 2 of that 29 from Canada. And we talk about how they came to flower farming. And we've also divided them into, not in the book, but in our own minds when we talk about it, archetypes that have come to flower farming. So for instance, we'll name a few of them. We have what we call the family business, which is people, of course, who it has been passed on to them from either land from their generation or actually the farming lifestyle. And your example of the family business, would that be?
Well, we have some multi-generational families in the book. I think Plant Masters, Leon and Carol Carrier, they're in Maryland. They've farmed for 30 years, and now Lee Jr., the third, their son, is taking over the business, and he's actually bought into the business, allowing them to buy even more land and have sort of a farm annex down the road from their home farm. But Leon and Carol are about ready to retire, and it was many decades before they had sort of an exit strategy, and their son became their exit strategy.
Right, exactly, because it's not exactly what a lot of farmers' kids think they want to do. The other one we call the side hustle, which is people who started on the side. They started with 3 raised beds in their backyard, or they started with, taking their whole backyard and making it into a, patch of flowers. Or as one couple in this book who's up the Jarning Company, they started growing the tulips in their living room in crates in their living room, and then they transfer them to land they were renting up north. So
Tracy and Nick, and they both have full-time jobs. Tracy, they both come out of the Hmong community as immigrants from Thailand, and Tracy was thinking that was the last thing she ever wanted to do, but then COVID hit, and her mother needed help and her sister needed help, and they were farming and selling at the Pike Place Market. So all of a sudden life took a turn, and the full-time job had a side venture, which is growing tulips.
And now it's almost full-time, right?
It is. I talked to her today actually, and her mother has moved her flowers onto Tracy and Nick's land so they can farm together.
Not their living room, which is
No,
good,
on
right,
the,
yeah.
on the lease, 4 acres in Monroe,
Right.
yeah.
The other one we call the corporate escape, which, no surprise, right? How much have we heard about the corporate escape
There's
over
a few
these
of those
years?
here, I think.
Yeah, maybe. I think my favorite corporate escape story is Diddle and Zen.
Okay. You want me to talk about that?
Yes, I do.
Okay, so Abby Matson and her husband lived in Colorado, and they were in the multifamily home real estate industry, but they really wanted to have a farm, and they had literally no farming skills, but a dream of a farmhouse. And Abby was great at looking on Redfin and looking for real estate, and her only objective was to buy an old farmhouse and live near an airport so her husband could continue to commute. And they ended up outside of Burlington, Vermont, which is a long way from Colorado. And
And bought the house online without ever seeing it.
yes, and she
It's gorgeous.
she brought her corporate skills to her business, in that her farm evolved into a retail flower shop and a second retail flower shop, and it's amazing that she manifested that dream of having a rural lifestyle that still supports her and does really beautiful things for the community.
Yeah, and Diddle and Zen are the names of their dogs. And one of the things is, if you really, truly are thinking about becoming a flower farmer, you have to have a dog. That's kind of goes without saying.
There are a lot of dog photos in this book.
Yeah, I did the photo editing for the book and the acquisition and assignments, and if I looked at one more dog photo, I mean, there were just too many. So
You got how many did you leave in the pages of this book?
just a couple. Then I threw in some sheep, and a cat, and chickens, of
And
course.
bees.
And geese, yeah.
And bees.
Bees, yes, and bees. So we had that variety. And then I think the last one that I'll mention is the Seeking Solace one,
Yeah.
which is that people have come to flower farming as a way of healing. Healing, the loss of a son, healing with a fight with cancer. Those things has made them come to this lifestyle as a regeneration. So.
And it's interesting because we had our editor in New York at first didn't love the unhappy storylines, and they're not in every chapter, but we felt that it was really authentic. And as one of the flower farmers that we interviewed said, you can't just show the Pinterest pages. You can't just show me in my floral dress with my sun hat and skipping through the fields with a basket filled with flowers, because that's not real. But real is the grit and the determination to to really put your hands in the dirt. And Robin has a saying that we use in the book, which is the dirt welcomes everyone, and I think that's really
It's true. We
that's the
say
healing
that.
part.
The dirt does welcome everyone, because growing a patch of flowers or food is filled with possibility. You may have or borrow the use of a small portion of land. You may possess a raised bed or a few pots on a patio or balcony, but all you need to add really is sunshine, water, and a dose of sweat equity. A packet of sunflower seeds costs less than $5 and will yield an abundance of good cheer when their tall stems soar above your head. As journalists and consumer trend researchers, which we both did for many years, Debra and I have known each other for over 15 years. We met. Being a journalist, being a trend researcher, we not only track the growth of floral entrepreneurship, but also the demographic rise of flower lovers who we call, or Debra has named, farm adjacent. These are the people who desire to know the how, the where, the who behind the seasonal bouquets and the bunches of flowers we enjoy. And that's why a part of this book is, for every flower farmer, there are 29 flowers. Each one has a flower that they talk about. We give you what we call the cliff notes of how to grow them.
Additionally, we want our purchases and our choices to feel meaningful. We want to connect with nature and experience the mystery of plants. Gardeners, florists, and nature lovers may not farm themselves, but they yearn to integrate the character and attributes of a flower farm into their backyards. And that kind of makes me want to mention also that we use the word grower in our subtitle, not just farmer, because we do have people in this book who come to flower growing as florists. Holly Chappell, Max Gill, really renowned floral designers who decided to start growing because they had a pain point. They couldn't get the flowers they wanted for their design businesses, and so they found themselves growing, in Max's case, in a backyard in Berkeley, in Holly's case, on a farm she and her late husband purchased in Virginia. But we like to use the word farmer, grower as a broader that encompasses everyone. Modern day flower lovers are most likely a few generations removed from their ancestors' agricultural-based lives. We often romanticize the idea of self-sufficient farming. Growing flowers has become a top activity among gardeners, second only to growing their own tomato or patch of basil. Notably, this includes more men than ever and more millennials than ever. Research about the physical and mental health benefits of growing and tending to plants has propelled even more folks to pick up a trowel and plant a garden.
So for many of the flower farmers profiled in these pages, the first chapter of their story always begins with a few seed packets, or a seedling that a friend or family member dug up and shared with them, or their response to a vacant parcel of land calling out for cultivation. As individuals, couples, multi-generational families, and friends who co-farm, they've come together to build floral enterprises that not only provide a livelihood, but also a rewarding lifestyle that was once viewed as unconventional. And more than not, that is their driver, is that unconventional lifestyle, having freedom to do what they want. We don't want to, sugarcoat it. Farming is hard work. We all know that. So, but now, not so much. It's the substance that dreams are made of for them. So it's no surprise to learn that as storytellers, we had thousands of potential farmers to consider when developing this book. Our shared goal was to introduce and profile farmers whose stories are uniquely inspiring, whose climatic and geographic conditions are relatable to a wide range of gardeners across the North American continent, and who were willing to impart their wisdom and expertise. They openly shared the beauty and the grit of their farm through photography, while our interviews with each reveal the truths, challenges, and the hard work of flower farmers. The glorious sense of achievement experienced when a desired crop flourishes, also the disappointment when one fails. The path to a land and cultivation of a farm-based enterprise may instigate your desire to embrace a life in flowers as well.
If you feel the pull and potential promise of growing your own bouquet, and I know many of you are doing that here, it's time to explore the many routes to your floral lifestyle. The methods and practices may vary, but the insights from our 29 farms profiled in The Flower Farmers will get you started. Adopt their techniques and tips and plant at least one of the featured botanicals that accompany their stories. You want to finish that last sentence?
We've embraced this lifestyle ourselves. If you come by at my house in Gig Harbor, you'll see 3 raised beds that my neighbor down the street built for us on the side. My husband has tomatoes in them. I have dahlias in one. It's a lifestyle. There's nothing more satisfying, more deeply rewarding than enjoying flowers throughout the seasons, especially the ones that you grow yourself.
Brilliantly said.
Oh, yes. So we're happy to take a few questions about.
How did I develop the text?
Yes, how did you develop the text?
I would love to tell you that. I'm so happy you asked that question, because so often people are drawn to the photos, which of course we love, but sometimes, Americans aren't reading as much. I'm here in a bookstore, so I should know that this audience reads. I have started an organization called Slow Flowers Society and the Slow Flowers Movement, and so for the last 10 or 15 years, basically all I've done is interview flower farmers and floral designers. And so when we talked with Abrams about this book, which was not our idea, it was our editor Shannon Mullins' idea, when she said, do you think you could work on this book about the lifestyle of flower farmers, Robin and I said, yeah, we got that. That's what we know how to do. So really, each of the farms, we did at least 2 interviews with the farms. I visited many of these farms. Almost all of them have been on the Slow Flowers podcast, which is a project I've had going on for over a decade. So pretty much they weren't strangers, which helped a lot with telling these stories. We are very careful about working with each of the farms on the flower or botanical sidebars so that the expertise that they had was conveyed. We're not teaching you how to flower farm, but we're teaching you how to maybe explore a new variety. I will just say, thank God for Daniel Sparler, our wonderful horticulture editor. He's very active in the Northwest Horticultural Society, and he teaches botanical Latin. And we got our publisher to hire him to do a deep horticulture edit of all the botanical Latin in the book. It even down to the fact that there was one Latin name that I thought I knew, and guess what? Poppy is no longer papaver. It's something else. And when you look at the poppy chapter, you'll be like, oh, that's a new one to me. But this is constantly evolving. So thanks to DNA. But yeah, we made sure that everybody read the drafts that we had. Robin went through, she's an amazing editor. She edited everything and often caught kind of my meaning or my what I prioritized as needing fixing, and she'd say, Deborah, you buried the lead, it's in the 4th paragraph. And she was just, we had a good back and forth on that. So
and the same with the photos, because I did the photos, as I had mentioned,
you took the lead on that for sure.
60 photographers, and Deborah would go, why'd you pick that one? So we have, well, we've known each other a long time.
And I will just say also, all of the people featured are members of the Slow Flower Society, and it's really my priority was to shine a light on people who've been supporting this movement. We did give them the full text to read and approve before it got in the pages of the book, so that we could be, thoughtful and sensitive to some of those tough issues like losing a child or recovering from addiction. We wanted to make sure that they were comfortable with the way we portrayed their stories. I hope that answers your question. Sure. She asked about the Slow Flower Society. We come out of journalism. We're longtime writers, and Robin's a writer, editor, and photo editor. She's like a triple threat. And my journey, shifting from a business writing, I had been at Puget Sound Business Journal as a business writer, shifting to features writing, home and garden writing. I kept meeting amazing flower farmers, and this was like 15 years ago. And that's when it dawned on me that there's something going on in our domestic relationship with flowers, in that people didn't know where the flowers they purchased came from, where they came from.
They thought it was a supermarket.
Yeah, everything's wrapped in cellophane at the supermarket. I, being an active gardener and actually active in horticultural societies, and I was the president of the Garden Writers Association, I thought I had it all figured out, and then these farmers started educating me. And I realized that there's a big David and Goliath story going on, and 80% of the cut flowers sold in the US are grown abroad. Only 20% are grown domestically. And it just didn't make sense to me. As a gardener, I'm like, why are we putting a perishable product on a jumbo jet and shipping it from another continent? That seems very wasteful. When I know that my friends and neighbors and horticulture society friends all were growing these same flowers. So I wrote a book called Slow Flowers. The term slow flowers was my shorthand for trying to explain to people what I was so passionate about, which is borrowed from the slow food movement, which we mentioned in our foreword. You all know what the slow food movement is, this whole kind of idea that came out of Italy 40 or 50 years ago, that was an anti-fast food.
And local.
Yeah, in Italy, I think it started when McDonald's tried to open up shop, and the foodies were like, no, we're not going to have fast food here. And so I'm very much simplifying that, but I decided that should happen in flowers. Why wasn't it happening in flowers? Why weren't we caring about the origin of our flowers? So the book I wrote kind of became my manifesto and led to a ton of journalistic projects, including an online directory called slowflowers.com that people can use the free search tool and find farmers and florists who are committed to local. And so that became a membership association. We've got a whole community of 700 members across North America, and now it's popping up all over the globe, in Europe and Japan, Australia, New Zealand. There's people doing the same kind of thing. Basically, any region or country that has seen their flower agriculture migrating offshore, and they want to try to reclaim that practice of having flowers that were grown close to home.
Very good.
You know, it's a very minor needle move, you know, in the last decade, to be honest.
Yeah.
What has changed is, I think, two things: consumer awareness, and Robin, jump in if you have any other thoughts on this, but consumer awareness, and and I think COVID had a lot to do with that. People are asking about where the dollar's going, whether they're supporting their community. And so that's changed. And the other major thing that's happening is a lot of the large scale U.S. commercial flower farms, they're mostly in California, and the landscape there has changed dramatically with, earlier this year, the largest commercial cut flower farm in the U.S. Closed. And so, and a lot of it has to do with real estate prices, labor prices. You know, the cannabis trade being legalized in California displaced a lot of greenhouse farms that were growing, you know, tulips and lilies, and now you can make more money growing weed. You know, that's another part of it. But the good news is that now the microflower farmers, many of whom are in this room, are the ones who are representing domestic flowers. So we're now seeing kind of this disbursement of small scale farms. It's decentralizing away from California, and it's everywhere. They're not growing, you know, hectares of flowers, but they're making flowers available to their community.
Also, one of the things from a consumer perspective is people want to support their local community. So if you have a choice of buying a fresh local flowers, you're going to make that choice over, you know, something that got shipped in from another country wrapped in plastic. And that we do see a shift in. And that's part of that whole buy local movement that started many years ago, but it's really, you know, got solidified a lot during COVID because that's what you had. But also now people are really wanting to invest in their local community. And so that's a consumer perspective from it.
And I would add that growing your own flowers doesn't mean you're competing with your own local flower farmer. It just makes you value and appreciate the talent behind flower farming, and you realize, I can grow enough for one vase, but if I'm throwing a dinner party, I need my flower farmer. So at least that's my reality. Yeah. Thank you all so much for being here.